I think one of the problems with this proposal for the Malanka site is that people can't really appreciate how tall the building is going to be. I've done a bit of a comparison with other buildings around town, and it's actually going to be twice the height of this building here, the Ford Plaza. 2.5 times the height of Flynn Church, and three times the height of Reg Harris Lane.
I was quite surprised to hear that they were talking about 5-storey height limits when in Alice Springs there's been a very big public outcry every time that developers have tried to build higher than 3 stories, because there's a big feeling in the community that we'd like to preserve the unique look of Alice Springs and the vista of the ranges all the way around. I was surprised to hear recently that Delia Laurie had mentioned 5 stories, and then shortly afterwards we see developers actually applying to go to the 5-storey height. My concern is that this is going to set a precedent, that once one developer has been allowed 5 stories, who knows, maybe there'll be 7 stories applied for around the corner.
This is a public copy of the submission made for the proposed development of the Malanka site. It's open to viewing by any member of the public by just coming up to the first floor, the DPI offices in the Alice Plaza. 3 stories is probably quite enough in a city living to have. You need to remember that usually when you have city redevelopments happen where there's a new high-rise, at first it's all lovely and new and people are paying high rents, but then within time, and we're looking at the building being here for 20, 30, 50 years, then it becomes an inner city slum. We don't want that to be happening in the middle of the CBD in Alice Springs. There's also the issue of parking. I don't know where there's already traffic congestion within the CBD, and I think that this is just going to further the traffic congestion. I don't know how it's going to be if people have young children living in these units in the CBD with no surrounding parklands, with none of the usual infrastructure that you need for families. So there's a lot of issues that come into play when you suddenly put 5 stories of living in the middle of a CBD. One of the first things that hits you about this development is just the size. It's huge. It occupies a whole half of a city block, comparable to the size of the Alice Plaza here in Alice Springs, the top end of the mall.
I'm not happy with Delia Laurie. I don't think that as the Minister for that's in charge of giving the red light or green light to development within Alice Springs, I don't think that she's actually seriously looked at what we need to preserve here, and that is the unique flavour of Alice Springs. We don't want to have it turn into another Darwin, which is gone ballistic on high-rise. We don't want Alice Springs to look like any other place in Australia, because people come from all over the world to experience our lifestyle that we have here.
The single-storey heritage precinct is just going to be dwarfed by this 18-metre high development, as is all of the single-storey shops on the other side of Gap Road.
The design of Alice Springs has always been that wide open space, bit of breathing space. We have 89 community neighbourhood parks. We've got laneways all over the place that connect the parks so people can walk and ride their bikes around in Alice Springs very easily and connect the neighbourhoods. And we also have, when you get into the CBD, it's complementary to the landscape. There's surrounding hills. You have a Dreamtime story, which is about the Yipperinya dreaming, and you can stand anywhere in Alice Springs and explain to a tourist what the hills represent, and that's because you can see them from everywhere.
Unlike a lot of developments that come up before the DCA, this one at least has a few redeeming qualities. One of them being that most of the mature trees are being kept on the site, and the approach has been to not just present one great monolithic building to the street, but to break it up into various smaller buildings. That's actually a very good thing, and it's something which is in favour of this development. By the same token, though, you can see that it is basically the one design which looks like, as with most designs around Alice Springs, an import from somewhere else. I think these architects have come from Queensland. So we have a nice tropical design for Alice Springs.
There's something about Alice Springs, when you get here, you have this sense that it's a place that's in the landscape and it's complementing the landscape, and also the cultural and artistic values of of this whole region. So we need to preserve that, and it's actually very important. We don't need to go become, you know, like Brisbane or anywhere else in Australia. We need to preserve what is special about Alice Springs.